I think that the wines in this area really are some of the best in Oregon.
Your children will be on GMOs. It's just the way it's going to be. If we don't stop it, it will contaminate the whole place, the world.
There's a lot of consumer concern, and you can see it throughout the food system, that they really want to see some change, and they want to see a lot more information, and they want to see products that have that local identity.
I'm so glad we're finally trying this place out.
Well, hello to you too. Yeah, it looks amazing. I am starved.
Welcome. My name is Amy. I'll be serving you tonight. During most of the year, everything on your menu is produced here in Southern Oregon or in Northern California.
Everything?
Everything. Can I offer you any of our locally vinted wines? Tonight we're featuring a Syrah and a Pinot Gris.
What do you think?
One of each?
The food industry has always been an important part of the Southern Oregon and Northern California economy. Historically, agricultural products such as pears, dairy, grapes, almonds, walnuts, other varieties of fresh fruit and vegetables have been exported all over the world. Mail-order foods have been particularly successful. In recent years, this area has become well known in the wine, cheese, chocolate, bread, and health food industries. In the following half hour, in our first ever episode of the Jeffersonian, we will feature 3 segments, all with a local food focus. The first on wine, the second on GMOs and the controversy surrounding them, and the third on processed foods. Syrah for you.
Yes, thank you.
And Pinot Gris for you. Currently, there are over 110 vineyards in the state of Jefferson. The positive economic impact of this industry is significant, and wines from the Jeffersonian region are gaining notoriety worldwide.
Grapes like more, they like to dig more, they like to stress themselves, they like to challenge themselves in the soil, and they don't really require that big nutrient. They like, the rougher the better, like limestone or breaking through shale rock in Europe or something. So grapes don't exactly like bottom ground. They like altitude, they like sloping, they like different angles, correlation to the sun, different microclimates and soils as we enjoy here. As you traverse from here to, say, Jacksonville, you're gonna encompass, 6, 8, 10 different microclimates and soil types. This valley gets some nice warmth to it, which is obviously pivotal for the grapes. We also get a nice coolness from the ocean. We're like 60 miles as a crow flies, so we still get that cool breeze, and so our berries get to cool down at night. Our altitude is really good. I think our growing region here is somewhere between 1,400 feet and about 22.5 or 2,300 feet. So many varieties grow and varietals grow in this valley really well. Basically, grapes are like human beings. As we grow, we all get character. We start off as adolescents, and then we go into like a young teenager and young adults and sort of parent-grandparent kind of things. And as grapes develop in their own climate or natural habitat after a while, a product of their environment.
And wine grapes in themselves have a range that really is only suitable across a fairly narrow zone of the mid-latitudes. You don't see them being grown very much elsewhere. So then when you talk about wine grapes being grown across a narrow climate environment, if you look at in any individual variety, like say Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir or something like that, that is even more narrow in terms of its climate niche or its environment.
The variety of mesoclimates that we have, which helps us to grow a variation of varietals. The weather is the largest controlling factor in everything that we do. And what's kind of cool in a way is it's also the one thing, or not the only thing, but it is something that we cannot control. And that always adds a little bit of spice into the practice. Whether or not, if it's a cool year, you potentially have grapes that have less sugar. If they have less sugar, there'll be less fruit flavor in a sense. If you have a particularly hot year, you could potentially have higher sugars, which then create higher alcohols and sometimes, wines that have a little bit more body. You could have a freeze early that damages buds. You could have a freeze late in the season. It's really, you can't do anything without it, obviously. You can't do anything really to control it. That said, generally speaking, the weather that we have year to year is as consistent as perhaps the weather can be, which is only consistent in its inconsistency. Probably 8 out of 10 years here is a good year. 3 out of those 10 are fantastic. The majority of regions where I've worked, that isn't the case. Maybe half are good, half are okay, and 1 year out of 10 is great.
I always look at it this way. Climate's the first cut. Geology and soil kind of mediate the relationship between nutrition and water availability within a given climate, and then landscape enhances or minimizes the climate within a given area. Southern Oregon's got a climate, I think, that number one is quite diverse. We have the ability within our region to grow quite a wide range of varieties because we have relatively cool areas that are a little bit more closer to the coast and a little higher in elevation. And then we have some places that are a little bit more inland that are a little drier and a little warmer. And so we have this very diverse range of climates. We also have a growing season that has a tendency to be very defined by when we break out of winter and into spring versus when we break out of summer and go into fall. And that produces the kind of conditions that you can ripen fruit to really high quality standards for wine production.
The wines in this area really are some of the best in Oregon. Production-wise, we produce a fraction of what's produced everywhere else. We actually have the oldest grape-growing region in Oregon. It was here in 1858. I believe it was Peter Britt planted the first vineyard. So we have a long legacy of grape growing and producing wine. And we're at a point in our own development where we're really getting our stride. We're really producing, as I said, I think some of the best wines in Oregon.
One of the things I think we often have to consider is that in our region, we are somewhat isolated from major population areas. So we're about halfway between San Francisco and Portland. And if you look at most wine grape growing regions in the world, they are successful not only because they make good quality wine, but largely because they have a large metropolitan area somewhere close to it. What the wine industry has been doing is trying to couple our own regional kind of economics for their businesses into capturing that tourism component to build on kind of this connection between the natural beauty and the beauty of vineyards and wineries within our area and the products they produce. And so I think there's a tremendous amount of growth in that area. And we'll need to do that because we don't have that metropolitan area to drive all of our economic influences with wine grapes. So tying into tourism is extremely important.
Anytime you support your local business, that money stays in that area. We have a huge local support in this entire area for the Rogue Valley. It is a major growing region now, and people here are really enjoying that. And like other growing regions throughout this area or south, It is something that people really enjoy and love and support.
Very good.
Here is your salad and bread. Bon appetit.
The salad looks awesome. Are those craisins?
You know, I haven't had a meal like this in forever. I must be eating too much junk food.
We're both in way too much of a rush. We should start cooking at home more often.
How is everything? Good, I assume. Did I mention that everything on our menu is GMO free?
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know, I've been hearing a lot about these GMOs. What are GMOs?
GMO stands for genetically modified organism. When people talk about GMOs, they're referring to food ingredients that have been altered not by hybridization, which is breeding plants together, but by scientifically introducing a foreign gene into the plant chromosome. For example, introducing a gene from a fish into a strawberry. According to the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, some animal studies indicate possible health risks associated with GMOs. However, corporations that make them, and even some farmers, argue that GMOs have not been proven to be harmful in people, and that genetically altered crops could increase yields to feed our growing global population. The GMO debate has become a hot-button issue in Oregon and California, as well as nationally.
GMOs have been created by a corporation that forced genes into a plant that would not necessarily pollinate that plant.
The thing about GMOs that is most upsetting is the fact that it defies the law of nature. They are artificially inserting genetic material into something that would not normally accept that.
Citizens in Jackson County should know that GMOs, in fact, are here in the valley, and they have a negative impact on an important part of our economy. They also are being grown by foreign companies who don't have a deep investment in the valley. They export their product. The farm industry in Jackson County is an $80 million industry. Of that industry, $15 million, or maybe $14 million, is direct sales to consumers in the form of roadside stands, farmer market. And also the predominant mode of production here for food is organic or conventional using organic methods. And the reason that is consumers here demand it. Restaurants demand it.
Well, I know the GMOs are bad for the farming community, and the farming community basically, the people using GMOs think they're awesome, but they're finding out when they first started with the GMOs, they thought they were awesome. Now people are starting to wonder just how awesome GMOs are.
Really, they're not growing for the benefit of feeding the hungry. They're growing in order to sell more pesticide. So these are companies that make these GMOs. They're chemical companies. So they're growing seeds to grow plants that resist the chemical that you're going to have to spray on the farm.
The long-term use of GMO technology means more, not less, pesticides. In the first few years when they came out, there was a reduction in pesticides. But the fact of the matter is that as superweeds or Roundup Ready resistant weeds have developed, they have to spray more and more. A lot of these things are very water soluble. They spray, it rains, boom, it's in the water flow off from the field. If you grow side by side or your distances aren't big enough, you as the organic farmer has to bear the whole cost of coexistence. If you're a GMO grower, you don't have to do anything, you grow it. It has no impact on your market. If you're an organic farmer, you have to bear that cost.
Mostly farmers are good neighbors. You know, they do the right thing. That's why they're farmers. They want to do the right thing. You get corporate mixed in there, corporations are not my neighbor. Syngenta is from Switzerland, which doesn't allow them to grow their seed in their own country. GMOs are not grown in Switzerland. Why not? Why come all the way to Oregon to grow your seed?
Seeds are very specific to, or can be bred very specifically to a geographic area.
Right now, corn is the big one. Corn, soy, sugar beets. When you buy GMO corn, you can't save that corn seed. It's in a contract that you can't buy it. There have been court cases where soybean growers have had accident pollen contamination on their crop. They saved it, and the Monsanto came and confiscated their crop because it had the GMO in that crop. Unbeknownst to the farmer. It's a fundamental right of a farmer to save his seed and to plant the seed that you grow. You can grow seed and it'll come back just like its parent. If it's got GMO in it, as an organic farmer, I can't sell it. Organic seed, unviable. There's a law that says no GMOs in organics, period.
To lead a GMO-free life, eat whole foods. Cook them at home. Make food from scratch. Buy organic, and try to source as much of your food as you can from local organic farms. Since there's no labeling law in the United States, it's all voluntary, and the Non-GMO Project is the one that has spearheaded this. So manufacturers voluntarily take on the cost of testing their products to make sure that they are free of any GMOs. And then they earn the right to put the Non-GMO Project label on their product. So besides looking for organic food, you want to look for those items that bear the Non-GMO Project label.
Over the next decade or so, to see the organic farms here, the sustainable farms here, go by the wayside as they're basically dragged into the GMO type of agriculture.
If we no longer have access to organic farms in Southern Oregon, Northern California, and we no longer have access to North American organic foods, then we're going to have to source organic food from outside of the country.
Human right of a farmer and a consumer, because if we don't stop it, everyone will be eating GMOs. Everyone. Your children will be on GMOs. It's just the way it's going to be. If we don't stop it, it will contaminate the whole place, the world. It's a world deal.
Free-range steak and chicken for you.
Ooh, that looks good.
You're not going to try to eat my meal again, are you?
I always want what I can't have.
Fine, we'll split both.
In our last segment, we're going to explore the local food processing industry. There is quite a range and selection of these products, from corporations that process foods that ship worldwide to canning done in private homes.
There's a lot of consumer concern, and you can see it throughout the food system, that they really want to see some change, and they want to see a lot more information, and they want to see products that have that local identity. So you can assume that, given that kind of national interest in locally produced food and sustainably produced food, that you're going to see a lot more of it coming out of every locale. Every region across the country is going to have more food that I can say, that's from my place.
Well, I think one of the advantages in Southern Oregon, at least for our area, is the proximity to I-5. The fact that we produce a food that is distributed nationally, internationally now. And also because we ship cheese during the hot summer months, proximity to the airport is a great advantage of ours. So, I mean, it's wonderful to be so seemingly in the countryside with really great agriculture, really lush soil, great pastures, the produce, meat, the wines, beers, the products coming out of Southern Oregon are phenomenal because of this place. But then to couple that with a pretty strong transit option with the interstate and the airport, we're really in a great position here.
That it's kind of geographically isolated, and I feel that that way there's a chance to kind of get to know the whole thing, kind of understand the systems that are in place, get to know a lot of the people that are, you know, like I know a lot of farmers, for example. And I just feel like there's a real awareness about food. A lot of other places that I've been, it's not that level of awareness, people really understanding the production and what it takes, and being, you know, actually curious about what went into their food and how it was produced. I feel like this region, for some reason, and I think a lot of it is because of the growers and crafters market, that really put the awareness up in people's minds.
I think we're seeing a growth in processing, food processing, particularly with locally produced products and products that have local identity or regional identity. It's certainly it's kind of feeding into the consumer demand and consumer interest in locally produced food, sustainably produced food. The fastest growing segment of the retail food industry, for instance, is organic. Now, you know, that's not all fresh food, fresh product. That is, of course, a lot of that is processed. And so the growth in the, you know, the food processing industry, you know, that's a unique and interesting segment right now, has a lot to do with consumer preference for locally produced food, and food that's produced, you know, with minimum amounts of pesticides, herbicides, and so forth. We're seeing also the, you know, interest in reducing or eliminating the use of genetically modified organisms in ingredients that find their way into processed food products. Something like 70% of all processed food products on the shelf, the supermarket shelf, contain, you know, ingredients that came from GMO crops.
You know, there's a real good awareness here of organic, GMO-free agriculture, and people wanting to support that. But when they actually see the prices, it's hard to kind of get through there. That is the kind of level of pricing that it takes. And if there was better transportation and distribution solutions, then it could probably come down a little bit.
Smaller producers in this area are definitely concerned about big manufacturing companies wanting to come in and take advantage of the resources that we have. I think that there's a real concern about GMOs and losing the quality and the freedom that we have here to produce what we want in the way that we want. There's real danger there, so that initiative for a GMO-free Jackson County is a really important one.
In our case, because we want to use an animal welfare approved slaughterhouse, and because we are under ODA regulations, everything we bring in here has to be stamped with the USDA stamp, which means that it was killed in a USDA approved facility, and there isn't one around here. So for meat, that's a huge issue. We would really like to be using local meat, but the costs of transporting that every week way up to the animal welfare approved ODA USDA slaughterhouse is just totally prohibitive. Because we're not doing the huge volume. I mean, if we were taking 30 cows in, we could spread it out and that would work, but we're only getting a half a cow in here a week. We're getting 2 pigs a week. And so what we decided to do is use suppliers that are actually up there already really close, because that minimizes the transportation, and then after they kill, they can all come straight down to us in one truck. And so that makes the price, I mean, I'm really happy with the quality of meat that we have in here, but I would love it if it was local. That was the reason why we wanted to open the shop. And as it is now, it's just not really feasible. And I know that there's lots of other producers that are running into challenges like that in the area. It's kind of a big deal.
Cheeses, dark chocolate. Let me guess. Produced here in Southern Oregon?
That's right.
I wish we could eat here every day.
You and me both. You know, this hasn't only been a meal, it's been an education. I never realized how important agriculture and the food industry was to this region. That's why we've got to keep up on the issues.
And to eat our Jeffersonian harvest.
You're right. Do we live in a great place or what? Bye.